welcome back to another in our series of Northern Roadlink live streaming sessions. My name is Don Parkinson, and I'll be your host for this and other streaming sessions to be done over the next few weeks, focusing on the feedback we've received on the environmental assessment terms of reference. I apologize today for my voice, just getting over a sore throat. As you may know, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks has extended the comment period for an additional 90 days until December 14th, 2022 for the 22 Indigenous communities that may be affected and or interested in the NRL project. Today we will be having a discussion on the community-related comments received. We will continue with these live stream sessions every 2 weeks up until December 12th, 2022. These sessions are intended to present the input received on the terms of reference or environmental assessment work plan, and we hope you find them helpful. Our intention by discussing these comments and sharing them with you is to be as transparent as possible with the input that we have received. So let's get started. Okay, the first group of community-related comments that we received related to the alignment of the consultation approach with community protocols. Communities often have specific methods or protocols associated with consultation on various types of projects. For example, chief and council may want to meet with community members first before meeting with a project proponent, such as the members of or representatives of Martin Falls and Webequie First Nation. For our project, as the proponents, Webequie and Martin Falls First Nations are trying to solicit as much input as possible from community members about the project in order to make sure that all perspectives on the project are heard from. You know, we're trying to make this process transparent and open and ensure that the assessment is as comprehensive as possible. Our project team has been developing and implementing alternative forms of consultation initiated by the pandemic, as well as the need to make sure project information gets out to community members in a way that is understandable, that's provided in as non-technical a way as possible. We know the information is technical, but it can be delivered in a way that is understandable without actually changing what it means. So let's run through the engagement options that we have put together, which we offer up to communities. And I'll just go through these quickly and then remind you again at the end, just so that you're fully aware of what's available. So one method is focus group sessions. Focus group sessions are in community open discussions with 4 to 6 participants. It could be council members, chief and council, could be staff, could be community members, technicians, um, anyone really, to discuss the proposed terms of well, to discuss any project topic. The session, is typically facilitated by a project team member from NRL, and the intent is sort of to gain feedback from the perspective of different groups, population groups within the community: women, elders, youth, land users, etc. Another method is community sessions. So these would be typical community meetings, and these sessions would involve typically a presentation followed by a question and answer period. And then we have another one, which we call drop-in sessions, where community members can drop in at a safe location to discuss the ToR and or to discuss whatever topic with the project team. So we might set ourselves up outside a busy part of the community, whether it's the northern store or something like that, to allow people to drop by and talk to us briefly before they go off and do other things. Another method is the virtual focus groups. Virtual focus groups are same thing as the focus groups I talked about before, but they're done via video conferencing platforms, whether it's Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or Zoom, WebEx, Skype. Um, uh, we know communities are conducting their business a lot more this way for other reasons that we'll get into later on. And so, we're more than happy to engage and consult with the community in this manner. There's the virtual community presentations where we use that video conferencing platform I just talked about. And the NRL team discusses the proposed terms of reference or whatever topic to community members with a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. 1 hour teleconferences is another possibility. And using older technology, we could fax over the agenda and the content that we're going to discuss, and then set up an actual conference telephone call to go through the material and take any questions that community members or leadership might have. And then, of course, another option is a local radio call-in show. Using local community radio, um, the NRL project team can present whatever content they plan to present with a local translator that will be paid for by the project itself to explain the topic that we're talking about. We can also provide a translator from our end if necessary, although it's always preferred to have a translator from the community who can speak the same dialect. And then finally, we have online surveys. And using online survey methods, community members can provide feedback on the proposed tour. So I believe we have some of these available on the website. If not, there will be some there soon. So let's talk about another group of comments we've received, and that's the lack of connectivity and technology in the community. This has been an ongoing challenge for remote Indigenous communities. Having access to high-speed internet um, is a real challenge, and there are long-term initiatives, as we know, going on to extend the broadband network via the installation of fiber optic cable. But a near-term solution was initiated by what was then called Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, now called Ministry of Mines, to provide Starlink satellites to remote First Nations communities in northern Ontario. This has helped communities function. It helped communities function a lot during the pandemic period as well, and has helped communities continue to participate um, virtually, when in these challenging times. So a lot of those obstacles have been removed now. As well, our project team has had success in conducting these virtual meetings with communities using this technology and this sort of variety of options that we present to communities. And we try to provide and help communities better understand our project um, by providing other forms of project information, such as live streams or radio shows, social media postings, technical explainer type videos, animations, and recorded project presentations, with the end result being just basically more informed community members. And I can honestly say that in community meetings, such as in Webequay, when we visited and done in-person community meetings, you can see that community members have really informed themselves of the process because they ask very good questions now, because they're obviously reading and are exposed to more different types of information that's easier to understand. Let's move now to another group of comments, and these were the need for site visits by members of neighboring communities. So, to expand on this a little bit, a couple of communities have expressed interest in having selected members visit locations along the proposed project routes, such as family or clan territories and proposed major crossing locations. This is something we greatly and strongly encourage, but really not after sitting down, not until we sit down with community members to discuss Indigenous knowledge and identify locations of significance on maps themselves. We want to better understand where these locations are and how they are significant so we can eliminate or minimize project impacts if there are any at these locations. So, um, we definitely entertain, you know, this option of taking community members to get them to show us these really important places. But I think first, we sit down and talk about Indigenous knowledge so we can understand where all of these are and then organize something together. Another group of comments that we've received is about greater involvement in the project. Um, Members of neighboring First Nations have expressed sort of a desire to be more involved in the project through future project milestones. Our project team is constantly looking to encourage participation by communities to provide feedback on the project and uses, as I mentioned before, different approaches such as call-in ability on live streams. And that reminds me, you can call in to this show right now at 1-844-424-0500. That's 1-844-424-0500. You see the number on your screen. So we're trying to encourage real-time feedback from community members. We may not always have the answer right away, but we will commit ourselves to getting back to you for sure. And we want to make this um, we want to make this as open and transparent as I mentioned before and provide every opportunity for community members to provide input. We've also received comments from neighboring communities that they would like to see community representatives of the proponent communities such as Webequie and Martin, or in this case Webequie and Martin Falls First Nations, actually present at community meetings. Now this is difficult sometimes. It sounds easier than it is, but quite often, leadership or people that can speak on behalf of communities, um, they're busy with other priorities. And as we all know, communities are stretched in terms of trying to manage a lot of high priority issues all at the same time. And but we are working on trying to get representatives from each of those communities to as many meetings as possible so that they can speak with you, nation to nation, and also hopefully set up nation to nation meetings as well too, because many communities prefer those meetings at least to start things off in terms of talking about the project. We also received a number of comments on COVID accommodation. Now, the comments related to flexibility of approaches and timelines in relation to the the COVID-19 pandemic, um, due to the disproportionate impact of the pandemic response. And as I mentioned before, our team developed a wide range of or menu of engagement or consultation options in response to this because we wanted to keep talking to communities about the project. We didn't want to just shut things down. And with the technology barrier being overcome to some degree, to a large degree, to keep that discussion going, we developed these different approaches, and the live streams, the radio shows, the different ways of the videos, and different ways that community members could access project information. Um, In addition, other review periods in terms of accommodation, review periods such as the proposed ToR review period, official review period, those were extended by the Ministry of MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Those were extended and in some cases doubled, such as now, where the due date for comments on the proposed ToR is now December 14th, as I mentioned before. And this helps communities um, assemble the appropriate resources in order to be able to respond. And I can also say that the province of Ontario has provided participation funding to many communities that were deemed affected to excuse me, to ensure that they have the proper resources to review these technical documents such as the proposed ToR and provide feedback. Excuse me for a sec. Let me just get a drink of water. Okay, let's move on now and talk a bit about the ability of affected Indigenous communities to take advantage of project benefits. So one of the comments was, can you share details about any commitments made to enact the project's purpose regarding the provision of employment and training from Ottawa community members? And then they go on to say, for example, what proportion of positions will be reserved for Ottawa community members? Of these positions, what proportion will be long-term, full-time, pensioned, and or leadership positions? They added that what is another question, what is the projected out-migration from the Ottawa remote communities due to employment created by the road construction and mining development induced by the roads? And then finally, what impact will the out-migration have on the community capacity in the Ottawa remotes to administer programs and deliver services? So many of these kinds of questions can't be answered at this point. They just can't be, as the project hasn't really evolved yet to that to that point. But we have a lot of initiatives, significant initiatives that are currently going on in this project, such as one being undertaken by an Indigenous firm called Origin, who works on the project, and they're an Indigenous subconsultant, and they're conducting workshops in both Martin Falls and Webequie directed at identifying training paths for community members interested in pursuing employment and training opportunities that would be made available by the project, either directly or indirectly. Origin so far has prepared a series of virtual reality videos that help community members get a better understanding of different project roles, such as wildlife biologist, community coordinator, and environmental monitoring technician, so that community members can get a more reality-based idea of the project role. So that pretty well sums up the comments, the community related comments. And before we wrap things up today, and I admit we're finishing a bit early just because my voice is winding down here, but I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to our streaming sessions. We hope you join us again in 2 weeks when we continue this discussion about what we've heard on the environmental assessment terms of reference. In 2 weeks, we will be talking about the environmental assessment technical comments. This could be a two-part session. It's going to be a big session. It'll probably run over into our final session, which is on Aboriginal and treaty rights related comments. So we've got a lot to talk about in 2 weeks, and I just want to remind both Indigenous communities and the general public that they can engage with the project team in a number of ways, whatever best suits them, including, and I mentioned these earlier, focus group sessions, community sessions, drop-in sessions, virtual focus groups, virtual community presentations, 1-hour teleconferences, local radio call-in shows, and online surveys. So there's a lot of different ways. And I can also say that, we want to hear from communities in terms of their protocols. It's very important that we hear what your consultation protocols are. If you want to take these options and mix them together or come up with your own way of consulting with us on this project, we are open to that. Let's talk. Please contact us in a lot of different ways. You can see contact information on the screen. You can call us at 1-888-515-3607. You can email us. You can contact us through the website, northernroadlink.ca as well. So there's lots of different ways to get in contact with us. So sorry to cut this one short today, but my voice is rapidly running out. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and hopefully I'll be fully healthy again in 2 weeks. and we will see you then. Miigwech, take care.